When it comes to the hopium of future MMOs, two projects mainly have dominated the landscape. Number one, we've got the Ashes of Creation, and number two, we've got the Riot MMO. They have been gathering all of the mainstream hype for years, but it looks like we've got a new contender that has entered the fray, and it's coming a lot sooner than all of the others. It's called Brighter Shores. It's a new MMO from the original creator of RuneScape. Now, he's been silently working on this thing for 10 years, but despite that, it is slated to be released in Q3 of this year, 2024. Let's go ahead and take a look.
So you want to join the Hopeport Town Guard? Then here's what you need to know. We're not just about fighting fire toads. We also investigate potential threats and help out the people we meet. All recruits will learn how to use magic, alchemy, and whatever this thing is.
Professions.
You will also be trained in essential survival skills, like fishing, blacksmithing, and assembling a dinosaur.
Dude, a little paleontology?
So, set sail for Brighter Shores today.
Fen Research presents an all-new adventure from an award-winning MMORPG designer, Andrew Gower. That's the RuneScape dude. This is a land of magic, mysteries, and fascinating wildlife. A huge number of professions to try. And something new around every corner. Discover an ongoing story. Places to explore. And hundreds of hours of gameplay. Yo, hundreds? It looks a lot like the original RuneScape. Andrew Gower's Brighter Shores. Interesting that he puts his actual name on it. It's not like his studio name, but it's his actual name. So that's the trailer. That's what we got cooking. Just to get a better idea of what to expect, let's delve into the Steam page a bit. Brighter Shores is an all-new adventure from an award-winning MMORPG designer, Andrew Gower. Explore a land of magic and mysteries, with a huge number of professions to try and something new to find around every corner. Brighter Shores features an ongoing story and hundreds of hours of gameplay. As the newest recruit in the Hopeport Town Guard, you are looking to make a name for yourself. This soon turns out to be more challenging than you anticipate, with a strange storm raging over the harbor and unrest from the local goblins. You will discover powerful magic sources and become one of the legendary classes of old. You've got a Cryo Knight, a Guardian, or a Hammer Mage. Learn a diverse range of professions such as fishing, forager, and chef, woodcutter, miner, alchemists, stonemason, merchant, blacksmith, and many more. The game will be constantly expanding, with new content being released in an episodic format. Each episode features its own unique side quests, professions, and lands, as well as advancing the central story. Oh no. Oh no. And this is where the monetization comes into play. Now, I see a free and a premium pass. Now, here is what I imagine off rip. I imagine because this is Andrew's brainchild, this is going to work in the exact same way that OSRS did, where it's free to play originally, but then there is a membership pass that you could purchase that allows you to access premium features. I pulled this up from RuneScape's wiki because if you're like me, you probably don't remember all of the nitty-gritty things that went with an old school RuneScape membership. So let me just give you guys a few. The ability to change your character's name, extra skills, purchasing skill capes when you achieve level 99 and 120. You get more accessible servers, more mini games, basically a lot of content. TLDR on how this feels as someone who enjoyed OSRS back in the day. The free version feels like almost an extended tutorial. You could get your feet wet and you could get a really good understanding of what the game stands for and how it feels like with the free version. And then if you decide to take the leap of faith, you could go for the premium pass. I believe that was $8 back in the day. Now, obviously, it's gone through some inflation. Thalissa came in with an incredible quip here from the developer himself on their pricing structure. Ahead of his new MMO, RuneScape creator says games have gotten too microtransaction heavy. Our number one aim is not monetization, it's players. Brighter Shores isn't focused on milking players. Now, in terms of things that I could hear that solidify my faith in a developer, that's up there for number one, maybe number two. But talk is cheap. It's easy to say one thing in a development interview. It's another thing when the rubber meets the road and your studio is under some financial fire, to put that into practice and to keep it that way. Available now on Game Boy. I will say, so let's go back to the trailer just so we could see. But hold up, speaking of availability, this looks like it's a PC thing only for the time being. It's going to be available on both Windows and Mac. Look at the minimum specs though. An i3 and 8 gigs of RAM on 2 gigs of storage. That's like a WoW classic philosophy, man. This thing is going to be able to be ran on a toaster, a Tesla, a Samsung smart fridge, man. So here's what we can expect from the free for the premium pass. You get 2 zones, Hope Port and Hope Forest. That's the free. Then with the premium stuff, you get the mines, you get a Chronopolis, you get to have a unique character name. So I imagine for that, that's probably just like, you know how when you create a name on disk or whatever, it gets you the numbers at the end? I imagine if you want the numbers axed and you just want something static, that's probably what that is. Exclusive armor dies, that's aesthetics, name changing capabilities, and player-to-player trading. So I'm skeptical about the player-to-player trading thing being a lot behind premium. I imagine that's something that's like an anti-botting thing, right? Think about the WoW free trial. They have the same restrictions, I think, right? Doesn't WoW free trial disable trading until you actually purchase it? But let's talk about the publisher. So the publisher is Fen Research. Now, there's not a lot here. It's literally just a landing page. I'm pretty sure in order to upload on Steam, they require you, much like other app stores like iOS or Android, they require you to have a developer website. This feels like a very function over form because it really doesn't do anything other than link you to the Steam page, right? So I did some digging on who Fen Research Ltd is. So hopefully we could derive some maybe greater findings. They were founded by the award-winning games developer Andrew Gower in late 2010 to create groundbreaking technology and products in the field of online games and user-generated content. Over the last 9 years, we have been creating an ambitious new games engine / programming language, which introduces an entirely new way of thinking about and creating online games. Dude, that kind of gobsmacked me there. Not the new engine part. So like, it's pretty typical to see bigger products creating custom in-house engines, right? Think about like GTA, WoW, pretty much any big AAA game. They typically do have their own in-house engines. But the new programming language, that's going to give them an unprecedented level of customability. One of the things that caps WoW in terms of which features it can add is the fact that it's working on a very dated engine. But they've literally not only built a new engine, but a new language from scratch for this specific thing. That is an incredible feat of strength. The hard work is finally beginning to pay off, and our game engine has now got to the point where we can start making real games with it. And we currently have 2 exciting games in production. Our plan is to first create and release some games for you to enjoy, and meanwhile we will carry on improving the engine to the point where, further down the line, we can share the engine as well. FenForge is our engine and programming language, which is designed for the ground up to make the development of online multiplayer games quicker, easier, and less error-prone. FenForge is still in development, and we are not ready to share it just yet, but you can visit fenforge.com to find out more about it. Before using FenForge to create a large game, we decided it would be wise to first create a smaller game to test that FenForge works correctly. Based. Our first game, therefore, is a suite of multiplayer games for younger children called Iona's Toy Box. Iona's Toy Box is currently being tested and is coming very soon to the App Store. Our second game, Soul Strike, is a turn-based strategy game. It's quick to learn, but hard to master. There are tons of new units to unlock as you play the game, allowing you to customize your loadout to match your playstyle. Soul Strike is currently still in development. We also have another currently top secret game in development. We aren't ready to reveal much more about this yet, so check out the news and updates section below to choose the most convenient way to stay informed. So this is a little bit dated, but it covers the gist. Now, the two interesting things I think to point out here, number one, their revenue is around $1 million, which is honestly pretty good for just two smaller projects, but their employee count is 6. 6! Now, that is a small team for any kind of indie game, much less an MMO. That probably explains the 10 years of development time, dude. 6 people building not only an MMO, but a custom engine, a custom language, and 2 other products. Those are all-star developers, man. Those are massive pumpers. But yeah, that's the company info. Now, let's talk about the man behind the publisher. Moreover, the man who owns the publisher. His name is Andrew Gower. Again, he's the OG dude behind RuneScape. That's his brainchild. So let's delve into the history. After initially creating the Jagex name and logo for their projects, brothers and computer programmers Andrew Gower and Paul Gower began trading under the Jagex name in 1999, describing Jagex Software as a small software company based in England who specialize in producing top-quality Java games for web pages. That same year, they began work on an MMO RPG called RuneScape, which was released in January of 2001. RuneScape grew dramatically. 1 year after its release, over 1 million free accounts had been registered. The game was originally supported by advertisements. However, the dot-com bubble meant that there were fewer advertisers. The new company created a paid version of the game with extra features to support hosting costs and continued development. The pay-to-play version of RuneScape was released the 27th of February in 2002. It gained 2,000 subscribers in the first hour and 5,000 subscribers in the first week, making it one of the largest Java pay-to-play games in the world at the time. In 2007, RuneScape achieved 1 million subscribers 11 years after launch, and the company touted 200 million accounts. Now, that's a little bit of the history of its success, but I think what's more telling about the current state of Brighter Shores development are the finer details that we'll find in the company structure section of Jagex. Now, bear with me, because this is a little train, but you'll see where I'm coming from once we get to the end of these 2 paragraphs. Initially, the company was self-funded, but in 2005, they received an investment from Insight Venture Partners. Now, in December of 2010, the Rain Group and the Spectrum Equity investors invested in Jagex, while Insight increased their investment. Andrew Gower and Paul Gower and Constant Tedder left the board of the directors around that time, and in January of 2012, Insight increased its stake in Jagex from 35% to 55%. Now, the reason why this is important is because this is the first time that the majority stake in the company was taken from the hands of the Gower brothers. Before, they owned and operated the majority. They could call the shots, but this point right here was the turning of the tides. However, in an interview, Gerhard stated that the Insight took their 55% stake 13 months prior in December of 2010. And on the 11th of September in 2014, Mark would announce his retirement and his resignation from Jagex. So why this is important is because this is the first concrete date right here of that 10-year spectrum. This would begin his silent grind, which would eventually culminate into the point where we're at today, 10 years later, where Andrew, on his own personal Twitter, would say this: I am very excited to finally announce my new game, Brighter Shores. Check out the Steam link below. Please add it to the wish list. Now, we'll delve into the Q&A that he did openly on Twitter, which is quite bold, by the way. But one thing that I'd like to point out before we begin is this is self-funded. This is his own publisher, his own company, his own development team. He does not answer to anyone other than himself at this point. When you are in the driver's seat as a developer and you have full creative freedom over a product, you call the shots, no questions asked. But when you accept the money, whether that be from an IPO or a third-party investment firm, when you accept that much capital, all of a sudden, you have another phone call to answer, the shareholders or the other majority owners, and they have a lot to say. And sometimes, most of the time, that say is not good because there ends up being a conflict of interest between the creative side of the business and the financial side of the business. Let me give you an example. The Celestial Seed, added in Wrath of the Lich King, the very first store mount that we saw on World of Warcraft, The shareholders were creaming their jeans over that edition, dude. That thing raked in the dollars and very cost efficient. But is it good for the longevity of the game? Did it add anything substantial to the gameplay? Was it keeping people engaged in it for longer? You see how that conflict of interest arrives? When the creative side owns and operates the entire thing, you're not going to run into those decisions. So as long as Andrew Gower owns the entire ship, I think we're headed to brighter shores. Damn, that was a good pun. Let's delve into some of the open QA that Andrew fielded on Twitter at this announcement. Aaron here says, notice grid-based movement and animation is much nicer interpolated. Funnily, one of the NPCs in the trailer spawned seemingly at a cross-section of 4 tiles. Is movement grid-based, or is the grid an aesthetic choice? Andrew says, movement is grid-based, but the timing of the movement and everything else is not a tick-based system, so it's very responsive. Now, this is actually the first time that I've ever encountered the word tick-based when it comes to game design, so I was a little confused. Basically, the idea of tick-based is that it's kind of similar to turn-based, but tick-based happens on like a world timer. The tick is just a term for an allotted period of time, say 2 seconds. And there are a certain amount of actions that can go into every tick. Turning, combat, casting a spell, chopping down a tree. Then at the end of those 2 seconds, a new tick is refreshed, refreshing the action count. Whereas turns, it's based on player input, like the length of a turn can vary turn by turn. A tick is always constant. It's synonymous with a unit of time. Let's see what else we got here. Will there be implementations to prevent the botting community from controlling the economy and the character development? Now, botting is one of the hot button issues, not only in MMOs, but in RuneScape at large. Andrew says, yes, this is something that I have considered at length. I have tried to design the game from the ground up such that bots shouldn't ruin the economy in the game. We'll see how that holds, man. Let's put a pin in this. When this shit drops, remind me to go back to this tweet and see if it holds, man. Is there or will there be a closed alpha or a beta? How do you sign up? There will be a closed beta. I'll post more about it on Twitter closer to that time. Hey, if I can get into the closed beta and I can stream it and show you guys, I will. If I have to sign an NDA, fuck it. We're all in one on this. But if any of you guys are interested, Andrew says he's going to post some more on Twitter. Alvaro says, will it be an MMORPG or just a co-op solo? Andrew says, it's an MMORPG, but it does not rely on other players to be fun. I've been alpha testing it on my own, and it's still very enjoyable. Now, yo, here's probably the biggest thing you guys have talked about. SML says, same artistic fingerprints as your first child, Jagex. Andrew says, completely different artists, but I've always liked grid-based games, point-and-click games, and a clean, uncluttered aesthetic. I was going for a sort of tabletop RPG vibe and a retro, isometric game vibe. And that makes a lot of sense, dude. Obviously, Andrew really loved what he made. It makes sense for this to follow suit and for him to make something similar. But that concludes my analysis of what's popping off. Again, I have no idea how this is going to do. You guys have raised some incredible points throughout the thing, but I think the string that ties all this together is that we're all MMO enjoyers at the end of the day. Whether you like OSRS, whether you like WoW, whether you like New World, or even some canceled stuff like WildStar. It's really cool that we're starting to see more and more love and support poured into the MMO genre, and it's always exciting to see new products, especially backed by big boys like Andrew on the horizon. But I'm curious to get y'all's opinions. What do you guys think? This game looks like it will garner a small, devout community, but never hit it big time. I think what this will do is it'll get a lot of OG, old school RuneScape players to try it out. Because the hook for this game is like, basically we get to see one of the biggest titans of industry. We get to see the creator of something that permanently changed not only the landscape of MMOs, but for gaming in general. We get to see his iteration on what a modern MMO looks like. And I think that's going to have a lot of pull factors for people who got their feet wet with OSRS back in the day, myself included, right? Now, the retention, we'll have to see where it goes. It's a bit too early, I think, to say with certainty, but I imagine if it feels like RuneScape and it looks like RuneScape, it'll probably have similar engagement metrics to RuneScape, right? I think you'll see a big bump and probably taper off around maybe the OSRS levels if I'm having to guess. But I don't know. Like you're saying, who knows, it could pop off. The RuneScape community is huge. Yeah. And honestly, I feel like this is going to be a very nice little re-entry point to people who were maybe familiar with the genre and who are familiar with the name and the creator and just sort of, for better, for worse, moved on to other things. Oh, this is a big RuneScape again? Dude, that's what it looks like to me so far. But then again, man, RuneScape is a really good game, and it's still garnished another community. I mean, we see how feral people get whenever Classic WoW or World of Warcraft releases stuff, right? The community at large, like, anytime there's a scrap of newness, dude, they devour it. I think the real question is, how big is this going to be outside of its already established niche, right?